So today we were interviewing local author Anneliese Tisdale. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for inviting me, Stephanie. I appreciate it.
So first off, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your writings?
Sure. Well, first of all, I had never planned to be a writer. I taught in the school districts here for almost 30 years in Cedar Rapids. And I became a writer when my children asked me, "We have never known what you did in Germany during World War II. We need to know." So that's when I was kind of forced to start to be a writer. The name of my book, the first one, is Resilience, Growing Up in World War II Germany. And the picture you see here is the house that I was raised in Germany. We lived in Munich. The second book is called Kaleidoscope, and it is in collaboration with other authors from my Guild Writers group, from the National Czech and Slovak Museum here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And we put this out together, and there are 4 chapters from my next book in this. So that's the 2 books I'll be talking about. I was born in Munich, Germany, and lived there during World War II. I came to the United States after the war in 1948 and went to the University of Iowa and got my bachelor's and my master's there, and then became a teacher in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I taught there for almost 30 years. And like I said, my children then asked me to write the books. The first book, Coming of Age in World War II Germany, is my memoir. It talks about my life in Munich, Germany, where I was born and raised. We had a nice life in Munich, Germany until the war. Well, first of all, of course, Hitler came to power, and that changed things. We lost a lot of the personal freedoms. But it started gradually. The first thing that happened was one time when I went to school. We always had started our morning in school, in grade school, with a little prayer, and we had the cross in front of the classroom. And one day when I came back to school, the cross was gone, and there was a picture of the Führer, Hitler, there. And we were not allowed to say the prayer anymore. But instead of the prayer, we had to say the Hitler greetings, the Hitler salute. Another incident that took place was my mother and I went shopping in Munich, and we tried to enter a store, and 2 men in the SR uniform wouldn't let us in. They said we cannot shop there because because it is a Jewish store. So I couldn't understand that. I asked my mother, and she was very reluctant to say anything. She just said, "Hush up," and pulled me away from the scene. Other people were turned away too. And so things like that happened. And then we had an exchange student. My brother was very good in French, so he became an exchange student with family in France. He went over there, and they had invited us to come and also spend a week with them there and touring France, and that was great. I really enjoyed that. We went to Paris, of course, but we also went to the Loire Valley and to some of the castles in the Loire Valley. And then afterwards, my brother's exchange student came to Munich with my brother. But he was not there very long, till the mailman came with his yellow bicycle and delivered a telegram, and he said he was to come, the exchange student was to come home immediately because of impending war. So my brother and my father helped him pack and took him. We took him to the railroad station, and they went with him to the border and saw to it that Philippe got safely across the border. And that's the last we saw of him. A few days later, war broke out. And that, of course, is what my book is about, my life in Germany before the war, during the war, and then during the occupation. During the war, I at first worked for the German railroad in the office where my father also worked. And afterwards, I worked for the United States military government as an interpreter and secretary, because at that time they did not have enough interpreters to interpret between the nation they just had conquered and themselves. And of course, it's always dangerous when you have to hire the enemy to interpret for you, because I could have interpreted anything I wanted to. And when I went in through the barbed wire fence into the compound, they searched my purse and my pockets and everything, but they couldn't search my mind. I could have interpreted anything. That's why they hired us young kids to interpret rather than the adults, because we were supposedly not as dangerous. Well, after that, I came to the United States, and that's going to be my second book, is what happens in the United States. Do you have any questions for me?
So my next one would be, in your process of writing, did you use any libraries?
Oh, yes, I used the library a lot because, well, all of this has happened so long ago that I needed to reinforce my memory with the dates. So I spent a lot of time in the library, but I even before then, I was always an avid reader. And my one complaint as a writer is that I don't have enough time to read now, because I have to do research and make sure that my dates are correct. So what I'm writing is correct. And so yes, libraries are very important to me. And then I have given many, many book talks before the pandemic started. I gave many book talks and book signings, and a lot of them were in libraries.
Wonderful. Where can my patrons get your books?
The books are available in some of the libraries around here have my books, and you can get them at any of the independent bookstores by ordering them. The Kaleidoscope, of course, both books also are available at the National Czech and Slovak Museum in the gift store here in Cedar Rapids. And well, of course, they're available on Amazon. That's a given. But that's about it. And I have a good supply of books because I ordered a supply in January of 2020. And then the pandemic came, and now I have all of those 50 books here. But eventually I hope to be able to make use of them and go out on some signings.
Definitely. Hopefully we'll get back to normal soon and you can get out there.
Yes. And in the meantime, we just keep on writing and researching and keeping busy.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. Your book sounds absolutely powerful, and I'm looking forward to reading it.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure to meet you. Bye-bye.